Have you ever picked up the phone and heard something unnatural? This is the terrifying tale of a small-town woman who received a call she would never forget and wouldn't live long enough to explain. It was a stormy night in October. Emily Dawson, a 32-year-old freelance writer, sat in her modest home in the quiet town of Windermere. Rain lashed against the windows, and the power had flickered twice, leaving her with only the glow of a single candle on her desk. Emily had always enjoyed rainy nights. She found the sound of rain soothing, but tonight felt different. The storm was more violent. The wind howled like a beast outside, and every creak of her old house made her flinch. Still, she focused on her work, determined to meet her deadline. She glanced at the old rotary phone sitting on the corner of her desk, a hand-me-down from her grandmother. It was an odd relic, something she rarely used. Her grandmother had insisted it was special, but she never explained why. That night, it felt oddly out of place. The phone seemed to loom larger than usual, casting long shadows on the wall. The room was silent, except for the patter of rain and the occasional rumble of thunder. Emily's fingers tapped away on her keyboard as she tried to finish an article about urban legends. Just as she leaned back to stretch, the phone rang. The sound was jarring, cutting through the quiet like a scream. Emily jumped, her heart racing. She stared at the phone. Nobody ever called her on that line. Her cell phone was the usual go-to for friends and family. She hesitated, her fingers hovering above the receiver. Finally, curiosity got the better of her, and she picked it up. "Hello?" Her voice trembled slightly. There was no response, only static, and something else. It sounded like faint breathing. "Hello? Who's there?" she repeated, her grip tightening on the receiver. A low, distorted voice whispered, "You shouldn't have answered." Her blood ran cold. The voice was unnatural, layered as if multiple people were speaking in unison. Emily slammed the phone down, her heart pounding. She tried to brush it off as a prank, but the voice, it didn't sound human. It had a guttural, chilling quality that seemed to echo in her mind. She shook her head and laughed nervously, trying to convince herself it was just her imagination. Minutes passed. The rain continued to pour. Emily returned to her work, but she couldn't shake the unease that clung to her. Then the phone rang again. This time she didn't wait. She yanked the cord from the wall. The phone fell silent and she sighed in relief, but as she turned back to her laptop, the phone rang again. Her heart stopped. The cord dangled uselessly from the wall, yet the phone continued to ring. Slowly, almost unwillingly, she picked up the receiver again. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. The same static greeted her, but this time the voice was louder.
"Why did you hang up?"
It growled. Emily screamed and threw the receiver across the room. It hit the floor with a dull thud, but the voice continued, now echoing from the phone's base. "You can't escape, Emily." She backed away, her chest heaving with terror. The shadows in the room seemed to grow darker, almost alive. She felt watched, though she was alone. Terrified, Emily grabbed her cell phone and called her best friend, Claire. "Claire, I don't know what's happening. The old phone, it's ringing even though it's unplugged, and someone keeps talking to me." Claire tried to calm her down. It's probably some old wiring issue or maybe a power surge. Phones can act weird during storms. Just unplug it and ignore it." "I already did," Emily cried. "It's still ringing." Okay, I'll come over." Claire said. "Just stay calm." Emily hung up, feeling slightly reassured, but as she turned back toward the phone, she saw something that froze her in place. The receiver, which she had thrown across the room, was now back on the cradle. Her hands trembled as she approached it, unsure if she was losing her mind. Then she noticed the dial. The numbers were spinning on their own, stopping at 666. Before Emily could react, the room went dark. The power had finally gone out. Only the candle's flickering flame illuminated the space. The phone rang again, louder this time, almost deafening. Tears streamed down her face as she approached the phone. Her hand shook as she picked up the receiver. "What do you want?" she screamed. The voice chuckled, low and menacing. "You took something that wasn't yours," it said. Emily's mind raced. What could it mean? Suddenly she remembered. The phone had belonged to her grandmother, who had died under mysterious circumstances. Emily had always loved its vintage charm and insisted on keeping it after her grandmother's death. But now, she wasn't so sure that was the right choice. "Who are you?" she whispered. "You already know," the voice hissed. Images flashed in her mind. Her grandmother's funeral, the way the coffin seemed to rattle as it was lowered into the ground, and the strange look on her grandmother's face when she last saw her alive. Was this her grandmother's voice, or something far worse? And then silence. The phone slipped from her hand and crashed to the floor. And then silence. The phone slipped from her hand and crashed to the floor. The candle flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Emily's screams echoed through the house, but when Claire arrived moments later, she found the door locked and no sign of her friend. All that remained was the old rotary phone, its receiver dangling, and a faint, static-filled voice whispering, "You're next." If you enjoyed this chilling tale, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more horrifying stories. And remember, next time your phone rings at midnight, think twice before you answer.